Hello, welcome, namaste, and horpichai. Today I'd like to share with you a little bit more of the details of how to use the I Ching and how to find your chapter and how to read your chapters. With me today I have the soundtrack of nature behind me, the birds and monkeys. So allow that to also be something that may be informing you in a way of nature. So when we sit to read the I Ching, when we come to Yi, who is the great advisor, we need to, it would be good to, we would like to, come in with reverence. So we've said that we come to the I Ching as we come to an old sage. When we have this wise man or wise woman, a grandfather, a grandmother, that can actually give us advice and help us find clarity and fortify us with discernment as to how to move about a certain circumstance, a certain situation, a relationship, or a specific move. So when something important is happening to our life, it is important to come to the wise one and ask for advice. Today I have just a few of the I Ching editions. Master Ni's edition, which is an amazing edition and a wonderful translation. The I Ching that's been translated from Wilhelm Reich with the foreword of Carl Jung, which is amazing. A little older, made in the early 60s, and a couple more like pocket size. And of course, we can also use an online way to find our I Ching chapter. I think the most important thing as we begin is to open sacred space. And remember, in opening sacred space, what we're really doing is we're shifting our mind's attention to be more focused and to be connected with our heart's intention. So we're aligning our heart and our mind. I would really like to know something about this, or how am I going to move about a relationship, or how am I going to approach a specific job? So as we sit, we find a moment to create a clear space around us, to make sure that we are in a private space, that we will not be disturbed. And we come into a more meditative place of being. I would like to open sacred space by lighting a candle. I've invited one of my icons, one of my allies, Saint Joseph, who came into my life about 6 months ago. Another story when we come to archetypes and how they work. But Joseph, Christ's father or stepfather, and a carpenter, symbolizing the earnest person that works and does good work. So I love him for many reasons. He's also the protector of adopted boys and helps for their transition when the time of passing comes. I light a candle so I can feel that I am letting go of anything that doesn't serve me, or I can burn it. And I also like to light a little bit of incense. This is Palo Santo, any incense that you like. And as I open sacred space to find myself in my center, to the winds of the south, great Amaru, serpent, be here with us. Be here with me, allow me to shed my skin, let go of the past. Allow me to be grounded and see with clarity the decision I need to make. Be here, connect me to Mother Earth. Horpichai. Otorongo, great jaguar from the west. Be here and allow me to see with clarity what it is that I need to find to see and to learn through the I Ching reading today. To the winds of the north, sweet hummingbird, colibri, and ancestors be here. Colibri, bring me the sweetness, the nectar of life. And ancestors who have written the I Ching, ancestors who are the wise ones, shamans, yogis, Taoists, allow me to hear these words with clarity. Condor, to the east, rise above. Allow me to rise above with my great advisor, the I Ching, to see the greater picture of the situation that I will approach, to see it with clarity and discernment. Maybe May I be connected with the Great Spirit as you always find wing to wing with the Great One. Horchai. Pachamama, Mother Earth, thank you for holding me. Thank you for holding the sacred space in which I can come to the oracle, I can come to the divination and find clarity about the truths that are surrounding your nature. Horpichai. Intidaita Mamakia, Father, Son, Grandmother Moon, thank you for being here. May I shed light, Father, Son, to what I am about to ask. And Grandmother Moon, thank you, sweet Grandmother Moon, for your wisdom and for allowing me to see with wisdom. Horpichai. So I'd like to take 3 coins. I found these colones that we have here in Costa Rica. And I'm just going to wash them first so they're all clean. I have already washed them so they're clean from any other hands that were touching them and giving energy. So only my energy is involved here. And then a nice quick. And I would like to ask my question today. My question today is, I like to make it a real question. And I've just recently had this idea as I was talking with my beloved friend and mentor, Don Wilbert Salas in Peru. I had the idea of creating a new training, a summit of shamans that meet together. So I want to call it the Andean Summit. And I want to ask the I Ching if this is the right thing for me to do and how maybe it will give me some light of how to go about it. Here, the most important thing is that I actually write my question down. The mind is very elusive in the way it works. So if I don't write things down, they may change on me. Or rather, when I write it down, the question is specific, and the more specific the question is, the more specific the answer will be to me as I receive it. So I am going to ask Yi, the great advisor, shall I run a day-long, 3 hours, NDN Summit. What should my stance be? Question mark. So I have this on my paper, it's written, my mind won't play games, it's a very specific question. Should I do this workshop and what should my stance be? And I'm also even more specific, it's a day long, even more specific, it's a 3-hour workshop. I'm going to take the coins in my hand, and remember when we take coins in our hands, the idea is that our energy, my electromagnetic field, my electricity, my energy of my own aura and my own luminous field is now infusing these coins. And I'm also really in this sacred space that I've created, approaching this question, the question itself with reverence. It's just not a fleeting thought, but rather I pause it and I tell my mind, this is a very important thought and it's a very important question. So I run a day-long 3-hour Andean Summit, and what should my stance be to this? I roll a few times, I'm thinking about it with all my heart, and I'll roll them right here. And what we have here in my first roll, right, I have tails, tails, head, head, and tails. So first, I assign a value to each coin. And I'm going to say that heads are pretty strong. You know, some people are strong-headed, right? And tails are a little weaker. They follow behind. So I'm going to name heads yang. And I'm going to name the tails yin. The heads that are yang are going to be symbolized by one solid line. And the tails that are yin are going to be symbolized by what we call a broken line. A line, a gap, and then a little line again. So I'm going to begin again, just bring all my attention into my question. Shall I run, stay along Andean summit? What should my stance be? Rolling it, and we see here I have two tails and a head. Two tails and a head is yin. So I'm going to start from the bottom, moving up, and I'm going to bring it to the left side of the page because I might need to create a second hexagram on the other side. So I'm rolling to find my first lower trigram, starting from the bottom, moving up. Two tails and a head is a yin line, so I'm going to make a yin line. Line, a broken line. I'm going to roll again. What should my stance be towards creating an Andean summit? 3-hour long workshop with inviting many shamans from the Andes. Okay, tail, tail, and head, another yin line. And again, what should my stance be? I see I can bring several shamans, say 7 shamans from the Andes. What should my stance be? Okay, what do you know? It's again tail, tail, and heads, another yin line. So that's my first trigram, my lower trigram is yin, yin, yin. Nothing changing. Rolling it again, this is really interesting. Moving in, moving up, yet another tails, tails, head, which means another yin line, a broken line. Rolling it again. Okay, this time it flipped on me. Now it's 2 heads and 1 tail, which means it's a yang line, a solid line that moves across yang line. So I have 5 lines so far. I need 1 more to create my hexagram, right? My 6 lines. And once again, I have yang, yang, yin. I have heads, and tails, 1 more yang line. Okay, and I have 5 lines and I need 1 more line to create my hexagram, and I'm going to roll, and let's see what we have here. Okay, this time we have heads, heads, and heads. These are really strong. 3 yang that create so much yang that it's going to have to bust, to break through to becoming yin. So I'm going to create 1 yang line, but I'm also going to create an X in the middle of it, implying that this line is broken. That will be, rather, this line is a changing line. So this yang line is so strong that it implies that it won't be able to keep itself in this state, and it's going to evolve to flip to the other state. It's a changing line. So I made my 1 hexagram here, the original hexagram, which was yin, 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 my lower triangle, and then the upper triangle was yin, yang, yang. Okay, so that's how I'm going to read it when I look for it. But how does this translate? If I go right next to it, I'm going to create my yin, yin, yin. And then my yin, yang, but notice the last one is now going to become yin. It's changing to yin. So I'm going to go to my book, or you can go to your handouts and find what your hexagram is. So I'm going to use Master Ni's book, the Book of Change, the Unchangeable Truth, and I'm going to find here the beautiful guide of finding the hexagram here. That looks like this. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to say my lower triagram, which is depicted here on the left side, is yin, yin, yin. So yang, 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 yin, 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 yin. Yin, 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 earth, kun. Okay, it's right here next to the number 12. That's my lower triagram. And my upper triagram is yin, yang, yang. So I'm going to go to the upper line. I'm going to find yin, yang, yang. Yin, yang, yang. Oh, here it is. It's sun. Yin, yang, yang, the wind. Kun, the earth. And sun, the wind. And I'm going to go straight down from sun, the yin, yang, yang, and come all the way down to this line to meet kun. And it is chapter 20. So I'm going to write it down here, chapter 20. I'm going to have a nice circle, put that there. And then I'm going to go just to find my second triagram, so I'm not coming back to be looking at this diagram, just to have it ready for both of my readings. So my next triagram, what has changed too, is yin, yin, yang. So the first part has no change in line, and it is still kun, earth. But my upper triagram now has changed, right? That strong yang became a yin. From yin, yang, yang, it now has become yin, yang, yin. So I'm going to go up here. Yin, yang, yin is kan, and it is water. And I'm going to go straight down the water to where kun meets. It is number 8. So I'm going to put that right here. Wonderful. So I'm going to find chapter 20 and chapter 8. A clarification here, right? My first hexagram has a changing line. So I'm going to come to chapter 20. And as I come to chapter 20, you will notice in your book, that there is a main part of the chapter, and then after the main part of the chapter, you come to the second part of the chapter, which says line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4, etc. This is in reference to the changing lines. My hexagram has all stable lines. Only the 6th line, or the line at the top, where else referred to, is a changing line. So I'm going to read the whole first part of the chapter, what it's about. And the I Ching, my great master and great advisor, is also advising me already to pay a little more attention to this changing line, because this changing line has a dynamic that might be key to what is happening. Okay, so I'm going to go directly into reading this chapter. Contemplation, point of view. Guidance, contemplation after washing the hands and beginning the ceremony. With deep sincerity, the officiant centers the mind. The heart and minds of all participants are drawn to the good example. Likewise, the way of the highly evolved inspires people to revere the divine order of the universe. So I love this already. Remember when I said about connecting the heart to the mind? So we all come, contemplation. Be thoughtful. As I approach it, it's telling me to be very careful and thoughtful. Have contemplation. Washing the hands and beginning the ceremony. So I want to prepare everything. Washing the hands here says, okay, what do I need to do? I need to finish anything else that I needed to do. I need to be prepared for this, and then begin the ceremony. With deep sincerity, the officiant centers the mind. The officiant here can be myself, who am leading this, or we could decide if that is one of the elders. But what I will do as an officiant or one of the elders, we're going to open sacred space to center the mind. The heart and mind of all participants are drawn to for a good example. This is how we begin to live life. You watch me and an elder open sacred space and move into this other way of thinking and being. We set an example. And likewise, the way of the high evolved inspires people to revere the divine order and the universe. So all the people that are going to participate in this, they will get an example of how to actually tune themselves to the universe. They will get an example of how to be spiritual, in essence, right? How is spirituality applied? Because just being spiritual is a word, but this is how we move and go into it. In this hexagram, wind is above the earth. Just as the penetrating wind pervades everywhere, a good way of life and good teachings influence everyone they touch. The two yang lines at the top of the hexagram represent models of virtue in time when negative forces are pushing forward. The image of this hexagram suggests an altar or temple where an opportunity is provided to witness spiritual activity and to adore divine beings. This is the reason the spiritual temple was traditionally called a kuan. Kuan is the place where, again, the wind is above the earth, right? We have the earth and wind is coming above it, so it's bringing seeds, it's bringing fresh air, fresh life force, prana, right? It shows a beautiful situation, right? A balanced situation. The wind isn't under the earth, it's above, and it's really beautiful. It moves the trees, it brings us oxygen to breathe. This is a temple. And the essence here, it says, the top two lines, so the top two lines here is really clear to me. It's good. One of these lines is myself, probably the lower one, and above me, one of the elders, right? And these represent the models of virtue in times when negative forces are pushing forward. So especially in these difficult times we're living in, with COVID, with upheaval throughout the planet, with environmental problems, political and unease, whatever it all is, we can be models of the virtue in time in these times. The greater significance of Kuan, however, extends beyond the physical structure of a temple or a shrine. So we can be online, we don't have to have the temple itself. It represents the way of life that is cultivated and guided by constant self-contemplation, right? What you will receive, a vocabulary, a way of looking at this. Every participant will receive a way of being in self-contemplation. Through such introspection, one remains unaffected by the pressure of the worldly life and stays attended to the deepest level of nature. By following worldly trends, one becomes lost in the temptation of the superficial. Therefore, Kuan is more than a temple. It symbolizes a way of life. The practice of deep contemplation is a pathway to enter eternal unity. This kind of spiritual cultivation is necessary for one's complete growth. One's mind reflects one's participants and vice versa. One's mind reflects one's practices and vice versa. Therefore, maintaining spiritual practice within one's inner altar, or Kuan, it nurtures one's divine nature in order to attain unity with all things. This hexagram also concerns with one's overall view of life, which may be determined by how broad and encompassing one's understanding is. Even if one has traveled in many countries and lived among many different people, one's view may still be very narrow. The lines in the hexagram represent various levels of awareness. The first line represents a shallow vision, is called the view of children. The second line represents the awareness one has from behind a door or a screen or from an inner room. One's view from such a place is not expansive, nor does it allow a face-to-face encounter. Thus is called the view of ancient, overly protected ladies. The third line, the highest position in the lower triagram, has a clearer, more expansive view. The fourth represents close contact and direct experience, thereby allowing a clear, objective point of view. The fifth line represents one's self-reflection. Being in an influential position, he is aware of his responsibility to set a good example for everyone. So like I said, I thought, and I'm seeing this here, the fifth line is me. I'm not at the top, but I have to really be being in an influential position. He has to be aware of his responsibility to set a good example for everyone. And the sixth line represents reflection in one's spiritual life. With a sense of moral responsibility, one can only enjoy complete inner peace when the whole world is no longer in a state of confusion. So again, the fifth, it's telling me if I'm going to create this summit and bring the teachers, I need to really be sure that I remember my position of responsibility towards the others. And the sixth line on the top says it is that. It represents one of self-reflection, and I think the elders that are going to be with us are going to be the mirrors that you will have the opportunity, the audience will have the opportunity to receive that self-reflection. And from there, have a point of reference to say, oh, okay, this is how I might start living my life. And overall, it's really important because I'm doing the summit now in a time of turmoil in the world and in reality. It says this sense of moral responsibility, one can only enjoy complete inner peace when the whole world is no longer in a state of confusion. So while all this is happening, we still find a place. So we're informing ourselves from the inside. So my changing line was a top line, line 6. So I'm going to go to the second part of the chapter, and I'm going to go to line 6. And line 6 says, with prudence, one contemplates one's life. In this position, one no longer has strong or direct influence over others. However, one can still offer a good spiritual example and should not discontinue constant self-cultivation. This line describes one of high virtue who follows the depth of the Tao. I'm going to pause here and say this. In this position, no longer has a strong or direct. In this position, one no longer has a strong and direct influence over others. So again, I see this like the 6th line is not my strong direct influence. I'm giving this to the elders, right? However, one can still offer a good spiritual example and should not discontinue constant self-cultivation. So I'm bringing to everyone in the audience my example of how I follow these amazing teachers, right? My advisors, my mentors, my amazing, beautiful family in many ways. And I still have to continue my self-cultivation. I still continue to be a student. This line describes one of high virtue who follows the depth of the Tao, right? So I am trying to work to have high virtue. And the depth of the Tao is the universe, the knowledge of the universe. And this describes that again, one of high virtue who follows the depth of the Tao. And this is what I'm doing when I want to create the summit of shamans, of Andean shamans. They are the Tao. They can tell us what's happening in the matrix. And I really follow this. The divine nature of universe and universal love. The divine nature of the universe and universal love are what he adores. And that is so true. As a spiritual model, he serves others by quickly living accordingly to the principles of Kuan, not by preaching eloquently. I'm humbled by this reading. It is from my teachings that I've learned from the elders my truth. I serve humbly and quietly, and I live accordingly to having an inner temple. And my house in many places is always a temple, with saints, with avatars, with the Buddha, with the Christ, with Shiva, etc. So overall, a really beautiful reading, and it's really clear with my clear, specific question. Shall I run a day-long, a 3-hour Andean summit? What should my stance be like? It's telling me, yes, go full ahead. My job is to create a sense of a temple where everyone gathers and to teach also others how to create that inner temple. My position is that I have the responsibility to give way to the elders and let them teach, but also my position of my responsibility is really big, is I'm setting an example of how I'm going to be listening to the teachers, of how I create reverence within myself. And again, overall, it points this really, really nice in the line 6, on the changing line, that says, be careful, you're not going to be the leader or have any edge of arrogance or that, oh, I'm the one. No. You tone it down. As a spiritual model, he serves others by quietly living accordingly to the principles of Kuan, not by preaching eloquently. So I will be there with you guys, receiving the summit with all the participants, and I will be serving as an example. Wonderful. So now I have the changing line. I read the changing line, and it changes to a whole other hexagram, right? And we move to hexagram and to chapter 8. So I'm going to go find chapter 8. But if you look at this chapter 8, right, or if you look at the hexagram, there is no changing line. It's changed. So I'm going to read only the chapter in this one, right? Without reading the changing lines. There is no changing line. Again, the second chapter refers to what's happening in the future, what's coming up, or as a result of listening to the first chapter, abiding to its advice. And also gives a little more fine-tuning. Is there something I'm not seeing? The I Ching says, here, if you pay attention to this, you'll even get it even more, right? This is where it's going, or will I get it? And chapter 8 is just absolutely beautiful. It's called Be, and it is fellowship, guidance, fellowship, good fortune. Be cautious, content, and upright. The undecided will join and follow. The undecided will join and follow. So there's some people that might want to be coming to the summit to take it, but they will shift and they will follow, right? The lofty will lose the opportunity and thus be isolated. So if there's some people that know it all and they're really lofty about all this, might say, well, I know all this stuff. I don't need to listen to the Ray and the elders of the Caros. So they might not participate and they will be isolated. They will just miss out on this opportunity. In this hexagram, water is above the earth. All the yin lines are gathered by the unifying force of the leader. The yang line in the 5th position. The unifying strength of the previous hexagram, Qi, depends on discipline. In Be, this chapter, chapter 8, however, the position of leadership relies on prestige and kindness. Prestige and kindness. And I find both this, right? Because the elders that I will be inviting in this Andean summit are all really well known. I mean, in some ways you could say they have prestige, because most of them are mentioned in books and they're brought up, or they've been in documentaries. They are elders, they're world renowned, really. And I really think that those are the two qualities they have, prestige and kindness. Their kindness. It's just like, may we all be in that light of their kindness. Water and earth harmoniously support each other. Water flows freely through the earth, and in the process, earth absorbs the water. Here, 5 yin lines assist the yang line, illustrating a situation in which the leader is at peace with his followers. Thus, there is a spirit of fellowship among the followers as well as with the leader. The success of any endeavor depends on the strength and cooperation of the group. Deeply wise, right? This is developed by maintaining a strong sense of receptivity and open-mindedness towards new members, new advisors, and one another. Through harmony, peace, and friendship, a goal that benefits the entire group can be attained. And what it's telling me here, it's like, there might be some new shamans that I haven't worked with. It says, this is a development by maintaining a strong sense of receptivity and open-mindedness toward new members. So that could be new people that are coming in, that are participants to receive it. But also it says a new advisor. So it might mean that while I'm in the space that I'm going to create and start finding the shamans that are going to be participating, maybe some new ones come. And then allowing for that open-heartedness for one another, right? And through the harmony and peace and friendship, a goal that benefits the entire group will be attained. So overall, awesome reading. I am psyched, and I'm feeling really clear right now that while that is my approach of, I want to create a beautiful space for everyone to receive this, it's really giving me a solid idea. What we're creating, and this might enter into the title of the Andean Summit, right? It says create a temple, the first chapter that we read, right? Chapter 20, and it says create that temple that can be an inner situation. And also chapter 8 says fellowship, be open, be ready to share with everyone, and maybe some new teachers are going to come in, maybe some others are not going to come. So it's really inspiring. It really did give me, I don't know if you feel it through the reading, it gives me a sense like, this is what we're doing. This summit is going to be named the Andean Summit Creating an Inner Temple. And then that's what we'll do through and through. And I will have this conversation with my teachers, that this is how I'm setting it up. that I had a reading with the I Ching, or that this is what I'm inspired to do. Because what chapter 20 said also is like in time of turmoil, we need to create an inner temple so we don't go into a place of despair or agony, but rather we're constantly connected with the divine and live a peaceful life until everyone else follows up and things balance out. So, awesome reading. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come to my beloved advisor, and ask as an example to you guys of how to do it. I'm psyched. I'm inspired. So I'm off to shoot my emails to the elders and begin to organize this. And this has given me clarity in my mind. This clarity in my mind is informing as thoughts. The thoughts are informing my pituitary gland. And my pituitary gland, the master gland, governor gland, is telling all my other glands. So what I'm really, really feeling is this clear sense of excitement and clarity of how I'm going to do this. And I also, to be honest, feel the sense that I'm supported by the great advisor, that I'm connecting through this as a portal. Now the spirits and my allies know what I'm doing, and I have clarity of my reverence towards them and respect and responsibility for what this means, and I'm going to move forward in a really higher place. It's like with much more courage, clarity, and reverence. Thank you all so very much. Hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoy the I Ching as a tool that can really change your life, as a beloved friend that can be on the table next to your bed, to read it daily, so to instruct your narrator to begin to have a new language. So in everyday life, you begin to use this as an archetype. So we push away old stereotypes and ways we may have been thinking, bring in this new vocabulary that is really downloaded from this other realm. Thank you all. Hot Bichai.